Hey everybody, welcome back to the Resistance Book Club. My name is Keita, and this here is Star Wars Books Rex. Oh my god, we have made it. We have made it. So, if you're very much interested, you could get a pen and paper, get some snacks, and come on back because I'm about to lay it on y'all real thick. So, let's get to it. All right, so literally, as a huge Star Wars fan, I think it's always important to get into how did I get into Star Wars. Um, I got into it because years ago I was going through. It's no surprise. I suffer from depression. Um, I have went through one just recently, and but that time I went ahead and just picked up a Star Wars book and literally got into it. Now, I did get into it a little bit before then, um, but it wasn't as heavy as it is now. Like, I was slightly a Star Wars fan. Oops, sorry. Slightly a Star Wars fan, but not like a heavy one. Not until now. Um, and then when I got into reading The High Republic, then I became like a massive fan. But yeah, and that's how I got into it. So A New Dawn just kind of, which is the book, A New Dawn is what helped me get back into the love of Star Wars. And yes, you can come out of that headache of, not being a fan anymore or just like taking a break from it. You can always take a break from it. And when you come back, it's like as if you never left. But yeah, so A New Dawn, which is by John Jackson Miller, was the help. And then when I read that, is when I started watching Star Wars Rebels because those are the same characters in the book that are in the show. And yeah, that was the start of this massive journey. And then lo and behold, once it got to like 2 years later, I believe, um, then I started watching the Book of Boba Fett. And then that was the birth of my Star Wars podcast channel on any podcast platform. And I had dedicated that to that podcast, and I still do till this day. Um, And currently, I will be doing a review for the Skeleton Crew because, yeah, that's what we're on now. But yeah, so that's how the start of it. So, where we are now, I have read so many books in Star Wars. And one of the biggest things that I always, or biggest questions that I always get asked is what book to start off in the Star Wars universe? And I think the reason why people always ask that is because y'all see it as it's an overwhelming amount of books. And I can understand that. It is. And guess what? They ain't gonna stop. They ain't gonna stop. Nah, they're not. Um, because the reason why they are not gonna stop with these massive production of books. So let's take away the High Republic, okay? The books that they have that aren't the High Republic are fillers within the timeline of the movies and TV shows, okay? That's the reason why we keep getting more books being put out. Um, so you'll have books that like will say, oh, this here is centered around the original trilogy, or this here is centered around the sequel trilogy or the prequel trilogy. So you'll get those when you have watched the movies. you will understand a little bit more. But if you don't plan to watch the movies, that's okay. It's just letting you know where it's set in the timeline. Um, so when I give you guys the book recs, I'll let you know like where in that timeline that it is in the Star Wars universe. But again, it doesn't matter. So, what is the answer to that question of what book to start off with? Any book. I just went ahead and picked A New Dawn. Years before then, I believe I had picked up Tarkin, uh, Grand Moff Tarkin, and I believe Lords of the Sith. Yeah. Um, and at the time, I wasn't a big, massive audiobook fan, so I barely remembered it. And so, with that being said, I will be doing a re listen of both of those. And so that way I can, you know, understand what is going on in the books. But yeah. So, any book, any book. You could pick whatever book. You're not going to miss anything. It doesn't matter. It's just centered around a particular time in that timeline so you understand that certain characters are not going to be in this timeline as opposed to in the timeline that you are reading, if that makes sense. So if you are dealing with a book like The Princess and the Scoundrel, which is clearly Princess Leia and Scoundrel is Han Solo, always remember that. Princess Leia and Scoundrel is Han Solo. And were they married? Yes, because that's what the whole entire premise of that book is that they got married because we never saw a wedding in any of the movies and stuff. And they needed a book. So they figured, let's do a book that will show them getting married and then doing their honeymoon on the Halcyon, which is the ship uh, that they go on, where Princess Leia is actually doing she's actually doing a honeymoon and also working because she is a Senate too. Like I believe she's the Senate during that time. Um, so yeah, so you have that. That's centered around the original trilogy. Because if we all know, the originals is Han Solo, Princess Leia, and Luke Skywalker. All right. So the other books, um, that's just like an example. Okay. Now, as far as like book recs, I can do that. I can do that. I can do that for you. Yes, there are plenty, plenty, so many to choose from. I mean, it just really just depends on the type of genre that you prefer. Um, I know most times, like Star Wars, don't really get into romance too much, but there is. And when it comes to the spice, it's not as heavy on the spice as you think it is. So, just take that. And for those who aren't into spice, these here will be great. Perfect. But one, I feel like, I think there's one where I did read like there is, nope, two. There was spice, but it's not cringe, if that makes any sense. It's not cringe. Like it's not gonna take you out. Because by then you be so invested in the characters that it's made perfect sense. Okay. All right. So here is just book recs for Star Wars. All right. So anything Claudia Gray. Okay. Anything Claudia Gray. Claudia Gray at the time, she put out her first Star Wars novel, which is for the young adult, and it was called Lost Stars. That pretty much solidified her spot in Star Wars. She is now considered one of the architects of the High Republic, and so pretty much any book you can pick from her in the Star Wars universe, it don't matter. You're not missing nothing. Just pick it up. It's a standalone books. You can just read it and enjoy. Any Claudia Gray books. I'm putting them all up there. Pick one. It don't matter. I have to do another video of me rating her books in Star Wars because I don't know if it has changed, but for right now, it's been back and forth between Bloodline and Master and Apprentice. Those two is 5 stars. They're 5 stars. The Princess Leia one, I mean Leia, Princess of Alderaan, that one is so good. That's a young adult, but Bloodline and Master and Apprentice are adult. Lost Star is young adult, and then the two, oh no, she has one that is in the High Republic that's young adult, and then there's one where it's adult. All of them are really good. And I did appreciate the one that she did that was young adult in the High Republic because it technically, that was very ambitious of her to be writing about something like that. And I'd be giving it away. But yeah, all of her books. It don't matter. You just pick one and read. It's all standalone at this point. They're all standalone books. But my particular favorites is Master and Apprentice and Bloodline. And a lot of people will sit there and be like, no, Lost Stars is the best. That one is definitely a romance book because it's about two star-crossed lovers, I guess. But there is a friends to lovers, and it's also an enemies to lovers at the same time, which is like you have to read it to get to know it, but you are definitely invested in those two characters for sure. Even at the end is mind blowing. It's literal mind blowing. It is long, but is it worth the read? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Like there are grown people, grown adults that actually worship that book. Like that book is like the holy grail. And because of that book, she just like I'm telling you, like she just literally solidified her spot in Star Wars, which is one of the reasons why that she is one of the original architects of the High Republic because it's just so good. But yeah, Bloodline and Master and Apprentice, like I'm always back and forth between those two. I'm always back and forth between those two. Bloodline is like the older version of Leia because now she's the Senate. And then this here takes place before the sequel trilogy, which is The Force Awakens. So you get to see how she actually becomes General Leia. Master and Apprentice is set back in the prequel trilogy, and that one is following Obi-Wan and his master, Qui-Gon Jinn. And that is it's so good. It's so good. The mission that they went on, it was fire. All right. So yeah, anything Claudia Gray. Next one is Light of the Jedi. If you really want to get into the High Republic, please start off with phase one. Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule. Honey, when I tell you that first chapter, everything. And the ending, everything. The beginning and the end. What? Like Charles Soule, like my man said, now I'm gonna just give you one book. Because funny enough, he only did one book out of the whole High Republic, The Faces. He's the only one who written one book, and that joint was bomb. Like he knocked it out of the park. It was sort of like a mic drop, and then you ain't never seen him again, but you see him on stage and whatnot, and we're like, yo, you just only did one book, sir. But he is still considered one of the original architects of the High Republic. It's that good. It's literally that good. Um, Now, this here, the High Republic, is set thousands of years way before we get to the original trilogy. Now, if you don't know, original trilogy, I should have said that. Original trilogy is uh, A New Hope, Return of the Jedi, and uh, God, why am I blinking on the name? Everybody should know it. Jesus, it's gonna come to me. Don't. I'm just going through a brain fart. Um, yes, that's the original trilogy. You know what I'm talking about. And then you have the prequel trilogy, which is the one where Darth Vader, so Anakin, that's where we get to meet Anakin Skywalker, and it's pretty much his journey on to becoming Darth Vader. I think at this point we should all know by now that Anakin is Vader, Vader is Anakin. And if you don't know, then you can actually read the Queen's trilogy in that sense. You can actually read Ahsoka because or watch Ahsoka TV series because it all takes you into that phase of dealing with Anakin and Darth Vader. So, yeah, because he is a troubled soul, clearly, and the decisions that he has made, it was just for the benefit of what he thought was for his family, and also Obi-Wan TV show, Obi-Wan TV show. Um, so those are some good recs. Those are some good recs. The Ahsoka one is by E.K. Johnston, but really you're just following Ahsoka as she is trying to lay low, and because now all the Jedi's have to lay low, they have crumbled, the Empire has taken over, and um, they are looking for her because they know that her master was Anakin, and so now she is on the run, and then you get to see how she comes across her lightsabers, and that's why I said if you read that and then go to the Ahsoka series, and you kind of understand her journey and the Clone Wars journey. Yeah, all the way down to the final season, honey, of Clone Wars. Clone Wars final season is the best, the best, the best, literally. But yeah, and the Queen's trilogy is really Queen Amidala. Queen Amidala is, um, if you must know, is played by Natalie Portman, and she is playing the wife of Anakin on the low because nobody is not supposed to know. And on top of that, he is not supposed to be married or in love or have feelings for anybody, but he has always been in love with Queen Amidala ever since he met her, and she is a little bit older than him. But yeah, and that's what you see in the prequel trilogy. The Queen's trilogy happens in between the prequel trilogy. So you get to see like what is going on and how her and Anakin like, is around each other, how she is trying to salvage peace in this treaty for Naboo. So yeah, all of that, all of that. And it's actually not that bad of a trilogy. It really isn't. It's very easy, quick read, quick listen, to be honest. Like I breeze through those pretty fast. And yeah, yeah. And she is, so that's how she is the mother to Princess Leia and Luke Skywalker. Okay. Um, we should know this by now, but that's what it is. Okay. It's no surprise. Come on. It's no surprise. And Anakin slash Darth Vader is the father to Leia and Luke. Okay. They just was separated at birth when she gave birth to them, and they had to go, well, Yoda went ahead and decided to separate them, and Obi-Wan decided to separate them, which is pretty clever, because that's how you find out that Leia becomes princess and Luke, he's just living on Tatooine and, trying to live life. That's it. Yeah. You know. So you get the whole premise of it. Like that's the premise of it. Okay. We're not spoiling anything. I promise you. We're not spoiling anything because that's gonna happen in the books. Okay. Like they're gonna talk about it, but they talk about it as if like you should already know this by now. Um Now another book you guys can read is Dark Disciple. That one is so good. That's a romance book, to be honest, but it's adventurous. So you really is a really following Asajj Ventress and uh, Quinlan Voss, and you actually get to meet both of them in Clone Wars in the beginning. Asajj Ventress, like literally all throughout Clone Wars. Um, and so I guess Christy Golden felt like, oh, I can do this here. And then you get to see a romance sparking between, Asajj and Quinlan Voss. And it was so good. It was good. I loved it. I loved it. That is so good. Um, Now, also to Asajj Ventress is The Apprentice to Count Dooku, and this here is a script book, and it is a great audio listen. I need to listen to the audio. I read the script book, and I'm thinking like I need to listen to it because I could tell like this joint would have been good. Um, Count Dooku, who is a Jedi turned separatist leader. You get to see his journey from beginning to the end. And Asajj Ventress is in that because that is her master. And yes, and she is more on, she is Sith. Let's just put it that way. She is Sith. Count Dooku went from being a Jedi to being like he kills. I mean, he ends up being Sith a little bit, but it's more of that he just became more of a separatist leader. And yeah, and then things go crazy. So that one is good. And then if you just want something where it's more about like a great brotherhood friendship, you can read Brotherhood by Mike Chen. That one is good. You're following Anakin and Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan is master to Anakin at the time, and this here is centered in between the prequel trilogy. So, yep, you get to follow them on a mission and see how they handle that. I thought it was good. It just, like if you're just a fan of Obi-Wan and Anakin, pretty much a good story, to read. Then if you are wanting something where you want an older, like for us, you know, and the older folks, we have Shadows of the Sith, and that one, hold on, I forgot. Shadows of the Sith is by John, no, Adam Christopher. He is actually one of the writers on Stranger Things, and it literally has that feel, that horror feel. You are actually following an older Luke Skywalker and older Lando Calrissian, and this here is centered before the sequel trilogy, and it is so good. And guess what happens? Luke senses there is something in the Force, but a dark, dark, sinister. Is the Sith coming back? So yeah, so he's out there looking, to see what is going on, and then we get to find out who is Rey's parents. Because that is the reasoning for the book being out, is that we didn't get that particular story in the sequel trilogy of Rey, and then they went ahead and put a book out, and then there we get the understanding of whose Rey parents are and who is she really related to when it comes to Jedi or Sith. So yes, those are some wrecks. Like those are some wrecks. Like I picked some good ones. And I believe like Darth Plagueis, I have not read that. I do need to read it. Don't worry, I will. And oh, why I forget? Thrawn. Thrawn trilogy. Now, the Thrawn trilogy that I'm talking about is the recent one, not the old one that just now became canon. That's a whole nother, like, that's a whole nother thing to tackle when, in Star Wars. I'm not going to do that to y'all. Let's just stick with this. So, the Thrawn trilogy, where you have Thrawn Alliance, and Thrawn Treason. I believe that's the title of all three of those books. Pretty much they're all like kind of standalones, to be honest. Especially the second one doesn't really have much to do with one or three. You'll realize that in these things where it's kind of like they could be standalones. They don't really have to be considered trilogy. But yeah, Thrawn trilogy, they're all written by Timothy Zahn. He even written the first trilogy of Thrawn, which is Heir to the Empire. But this Thrawn trilogy, honey, baby, that joint is so good, so good. You get to follow Thrawn from the very beginning all the way to him just what he's doing is he's trying to save his people. That is really just the gist of it. He is trying to save his people. He's trying to save his planet, the planet of the Chiss. That's really just it. And you see that in Rebels, but kind of not because he's already like switched over. But if you read this trilogy, you have a definite understanding of when you watch Star Wars Rebels and Ahsoka that he's not there. He's not there for the Empire. He is really there for his people. That is it. It's just that the Jedi and the rebels and all of that, they keep getting in his way, and you'll tend to realize like you're kind of rooting for him. That's it. So if you wanted more of Thrawn as far as like reading Thrawn trilogy and the Thrawn original trilogy, which is Heir to the Empire. I have to read the Heir to the Empire one. I have not. And it makes perfect sense because we are getting into Mandalorian and Grogu movies soon. And apparently, Thrawn is supposed to be attached to that. And watching Ahsoka, we see that because they all have a history with each other. Yes. So, yeah, I am done. These are the book recs that I have for Star Wars. If anybody is interested in diving into it, you can read one, you can read all. It does not matter. They are not stopping. Just remember, please keep in mind, they write these books because they are trying to fill in the gaps of the timelines of these movies. So now with the High Republic, they are filling in gaps of now the Acolyte series because they we didn't get much of anything, and now they're playing filler. So, with that being said, there's going to be more books that's going to be centered around the acolyte, and then so now these books here are probably going to be good anyway because it's going to be even more detailed and all this other stuff, and it's also connecting with the High Republic. So, yeah, but again, start with whatever book. Do like I do. This cover looks great, and just read it, and you probably will love it. I'm pretty sure. That's how it goes in Star Wars. If I showed you a whole timeline of books, we, honey, you be sitting there like, no, I can't do it. So I won't do that to y'all because that will make y'all more overwhelmed. So just know that you can start with whatever book. But those are the greatest book recommendations that I have for you guys. And to be perfectly honest, I think a lot of people would agree with me who are Star Wars fans and probably would add their own book recs. Now, if you are a Star Wars fan, please put down in the comments as to what books would you recommend for someone who is starting out in the Star Wars universe. Let me know for first timers what book stands out to you that you think would be good for you to read. I promise you, it will not disappoint at this stage. Okay, so I will see you in the next video. Enjoy. This is the way.